They came without warning, without signal, without mercy. The sky above Lurien had always been soft. It shimmered in hues of pale violet and silver, a calm blanket over a peaceful world. The Lurians were not warriors. They had never needed to be. Their cities were grown, not built. Their tools were gentle, their science devoted to harmony, their history untouched by war. So when the sky tore open, they did not understand what they were seeing. At first it looked like a fracture in reality itself, a jagged wound spreading across the heavens. Light bent unnaturally around it, stars vanished behind it, and then something vast began to push through. The first of the monsters arrived like a nightmare-given form. It had no single shape, no clear boundary. Its body shifted between states, part flesh, part energy, part something the Lurians had no language to describe. It stretched across kilometers, its presence warping gravity and bending the atmosphere. Where it moved, the sky darkened and the ground trembled. Then more came, dozens of them, hundreds. They poured out of the rupture like a swarm, blotting out the stars, their massive forms drifting silently for a moment before they descended. The first impact shattered a continent. A Lurian city named Velis, known for its floating gardens, disappeared in an instant. There was no explosion, no fire. The creature simply passed through it, and everything dissolved into a glowing mist that was absorbed into its body. The Lurians panicked. They had no armies, no weapons designed for destruction. Their ships were built for travel and study, not combat. The defenses were little more than energy barriers meant to regulate climate, not stop invaders. They tried to communicate. Signals were sent in every known frequency, mathematical patterns, harmonic tones, even emotional projections encoded in energy waves. There was no response. The monsters did not listen. They fed. Wherever they passed, life vanished. Oceans dimmed as entire ecosystems were drained. Forests withered into gray husks. The very energy that sustained the planet was being consumed. Within hours, Lurien began to die. In the capital city of Oran, deep beneath the surface where the Lurians had retreated, a council gathered. They were scholars, healers, thinkers. Not a single one had ever faced war. "We cannot stop them," one said, their voice trembling. "We must try," another insisted, though there was no plan behind the words. "They are not like anything we have studied," a third added. "They do not behave according to any natural law we understand." A silence fell over the chamber, heavy and suffocating. Finally, an elder named Silas spoke. "Then we must accept the truth," she said quietly. "We are not equipped for this. Our survival depends on something we have never sought before." "Violence?" someone asked. "No," Silas replied. "Help." The idea spread quickly. Emergency transmissions were prepared, encoded with urgency and clarity. They would reach beyond their system, beyond the known allies, into the wider galaxy. The message was simple. We are under attack. We are being destroyed. We cannot defend ourselves. If anyone can hear this, we beg for assistance. Then they sent it. Across the stars, the signal traveled. And on Lurien, the monsters continued their feast. Days passed. The surface of the planet was unrecognizable. Vast scars stretched across continents. The sky was permanently dark, the rupture still open, still spawning more of the creatures. The Lurians survived only in hidden shelters, their numbers dwindling with each passing hour. Energy reserves were running out. Hope was fading. Then, something changed. One of the observers monitoring deep space noticed a flicker on the edge of their senses. A ship, small, insignificant compared to the monsters above. It did not arrive with a fleet. It did not broadcast a grand announcement. It simply appeared, dropping out of faster than light travel just beyond the orbit of Lurien. For a moment, the Lurians dared to hope. Then fear followed. What could one ship do against this? Inside the vessel, a single figure stood at the command console, staring at the ruined world below. Captain Elias Vaughn did not speak immediately. His eyes moved slowly across the devastation, taking in the scale of it. He had seen war before, but nothing like this. "Confirm transmission origin," he said calmly. Confirmed, replied the ship's artificial intelligence. Distress signal matches planetary signature. Species classified as non-hostile. Technological level moderate. Military capability negligible. Elias nodded once. And the hostiles? Unknown classification. Energy signatures unstable. Behavior consistent with predatory consumption. Estimated threat level extreme. Elias leaned back slightly, exhaling. Of course it is, he muttered. The ship drifted closer. On Lurian, the sensors picked up the movement. The small vessel was approaching the swarm. Some of the Lurians watched in disbelief. Others looked away, unable to witness what they assumed would be a pointless sacrifice. The monsters noticed the ship. One of them turned. Its massive form twisted, focusing on the approaching object. A pulse of energy rippled outward as it began to move. Inside the ship, alarms remained silent. Elias placed a hand on the console. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's see what you are." The creature lunged. It moved faster than something that size should have been able to, distorting space as it closed the distance. Its form expanded, tendrils of shifting matter reaching out toward the ship. At the last second, the vessel vanished. Not destroyed. Gone. It reappeared behind the creature, its position shifting with impossible precision. Elias tilted his head slightly. "Interesting," he murmured. The ship's systems adjusted, scanning, analyzing, learning. The creature turned again, confused. It attacked once more. Again, the ship avoided it, slipping through space as if reality itself bent to its will. Then Elias gave a command. "Test response," he said. A beam of concentrated energy fired from the ship. It struck the creature directly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the monster screamed. It was not a sound in the traditional sense. It was a vibration that echoed through space, a distortion that made the Lurian's instruments spike wildly. The creature recoiled, its form destabilizing where the beam had hit. Elias watched closely. "So you can feel it," he said. The creature tried to recover. Elias did not give it the chance. Escalate. The ship's weapons shifted. This time, the attack was different. Not a beam, but a focused disruption field, designed to break down energy structures at a fundamental level. When it hit, the creature didn't just recoil. It unraveled. Its massive body fragmented, pieces of it collapsing inward before dissolving entirely. Within seconds, there was nothing left. Silence filled the space where it had been. On Lurian, every sensor locked onto the event. The Lurians stared in disbelief. One of the monsters had been destroyed. Completely. Elias sat back. "All right," he said. "Now we know." He looked out at the swarm. There were still hundreds of them. He smiled slightly. "Let's get to work." The ship moved. This time, it did not avoid. It engaged. What followed was unlike anything the Lurians had ever witnessed. The small vessel darted through the swarm with impossible speed, its movements precise and deliberate. Each attack was calculated, each strike targeting a weakness the ship had already identified. One by one, the monsters fell. Some tried to flee. Others grew more aggressive. None of it mattered. The ship adapted faster than they could react. Within hours, dozens of the creatures had been destroyed. But the rupture in the sky remained. And more were coming. Elias knew this was not enough. He opened a channel. "Central Command," he said. There was a brief pause. Then a voice responded. "We see you, Elias. Situation looks unpleasant." "That's one way to put it," he replied. "We've got an active breach and an unknown species pouring through. I can handle a few, but not this many." Another pause. Then the voice spoke again. "Understood. Reinforcements are on the way." Elias nodded. "Good," he said. He looked back at the rupture. "Because this isn't going to stop on its own." On Lurian, the Lurians watched as the lone ship continued to fight. For the first time since the attack began, something new spread through their shelters. Hope. It was fragile, uncertain, but it was there. And above the dying world, a single human ship held the line against the monsters of the galaxy. The first human ship did not retreat. It did not hesitate. It did not ask whether it could win. it simply continued. Above the broken world of Lurian, Captain Elias Vaughn pushed deeper into the swarm, his vessel carving a path through creatures that should have been unstoppable. The monsters began to change. They were learning. At first, they had attacked blindly, driven by instinct alone. Now, they started to move with coordination. Groups of them shifted formation, attempting to surround the ship. Their movements became less chaotic, more deliberate. Elias noticed immediately, adaptation rate increasing, the ship's artificial intelligence reported. They are responding to engagement patterns. Elias nodded slowly. Good, he said. That means they can be predicted. The ship twisted through space, narrowly avoiding a converging attack. 3 of the monsters slammed into each other where the vessel had been moments before, their massive forms colliding in a violent distortion of energy. Elias didn't waste the opportunity. Mark intersection point. Fire. A pulse of energy detonated between them. All 3 creatures shattered, but for every one destroyed, more pressed forward. The rupture in the sky pulsed again. And this time, what emerged was different. The new creature was larger than the others. Far larger. It pushed through the tear in reality slowly, as if forcing its way into a dimension that resisted its presence. Its form was more stable, less chaotic, as though it had a clearer structure than the others. The moment it appeared, everything changed. The smaller monsters pulled back. They did not flee. They made space. Elias leaned forward, studying it. Well, he said quietly, you must be important. The creature moved, not with speed, with control. It extended something like a limb, though it was not truly physical, and pointed toward the human ship. The surrounding monsters surged forward again. But this time, they did not attack recklessly. They attacked together. The ship was forced back. For the first time since arriving, Elias's vessel took a direct hit. The impact rattled the structure, warning lights flickering briefly across the console. Shields holding at 80%, the AI reported. Elias adjusted course. Not bad, he muttered. Let's see how long you can keep that up. He accelerated, diving straight toward the larger creature. The swarm reacted instantly, shifting to intercept. Elias smiled slightly. Too predictable. The ship vanished. It reappeared behind the formation, slipping through a gap that hadn't existed a moment before. Then it fired. A concentrated beam struck one of the creatures guarding the larger entity, tearing it apart in seconds. Another shot followed, then another, each one precise, each one lethal. But the large creature did not flinch. It watched. It learned. Then it acted. A wave of energy rippled outward from its core, expanding rapidly. Elias's eyes widened slightly. That's new. Warning, the AI said. Incoming wide-spectrum disruption field. The ship attempted to jump. For a fraction of a second, it failed. The wave hit. Systems flickered. Shields dropped to 60%. For the first time, Elias felt it. Pressure. All right, he said under his breath. You're not just another drone. The creature moved again. This time, it didn't send the others. It attacked directly. Space bent around it as it closed the distance, its form expanding, shifting into something more defined. It was still alien, still incomprehensible, but there was intent behind its movement now. Elias reacted instantly. Full maneuver. Evasive pattern delta. The ship twisted violently, barely avoiding the initial strike. The creature's energy tore through the space where the vessel had been, leaving a distorted wake that lingered for seconds. Elias countered. Target core instability. Fire sequence. Multiple weapons activated at once. Beams, pulses, and fields converged on the creature from different angles, striking it simultaneously. For a moment, it held. Then it pushed back. The attacks began to disperse before reaching its core, its structure adapting in real time to resist the damage. Elias frowned. Of course you can do that. Another wave surged outward. This time, the ship jumped just before it hit, reappearing several kilometers away. Shields at 45%, the AI reported. Elias exhaled slowly. All right, he said. Time to stop playing fair. He opened another channel. Status on reinforcements. 2 minutes out, came the reply. Elias glanced back at the creature. It was coming again. Faster this time. Make that 1 minute, he said. He adjusted the ship's systems, diverting power from non-essential functions into the weapons array. Charge the core. Warning, the AI responded. Output will exceed safe parameters. I know, Elias said. Do it anyway. Energy began to build within the ship. Outside, the swarm closed in. The large creature led them. Elias waited. Closer, closer. Now, the ship unleashed everything at once. A massive burst of energy erupted outward, not as a focus beam, but as a spherical wave of pure destructive force. It tore through the nearest creatures instantly, disintegrating them before they could react. The large creature took the full impact. For a moment, its form destabilized. Cracks of light spread across its structure, fragments breaking away and dissolving into nothing. Elias watched carefully. Come on, he murmured. The creature roared, and then it stabilized. The cracks sealed. The fragments reformed. It had survived. Elias leaned back slightly. Yeah, he said quietly. You're definitely in charge. The ship's systems began to cool, the energy output dropping back to normal levels. Reinforcements have arrived, the AI announced. Elias smiled. About time. Space shifted again, but this time, it wasn't the monsters. It was something else. Dozens of ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their forms sleek and angular, their presence filling the space around Lurian with a sudden, overwhelming force. Human ships. Not one, not a few, an entire fleet. The Lurians saw them. For a moment, no one spoke. The sky that had been filled with monsters was now filled with something else. Something that pushed back. On the lead ship of the fleet, Admiral Ren Hale stood at the command platform, her gaze fixed on the battlefield. Report, she said. Single vessel engagement confirmed, an officer replied. Captain Vaughn has neutralized multiple hostiles. One primary entity remains active. Ren nodded. Then we finish it. She raised her hand. All ships, prepare for coordinated strike. Across the fleet, weapons systems activated. Energy levels spiked. Targeting arrays locked onto the swarm. The monsters reacted immediately. They turned. For the first time, they were not the overwhelming force. They were outnumbered. Fire, Ren commanded. The void lit up. Hundreds of attacks launched simultaneously, cutting through the swarm with devastating precision. Creatures that had seemed invincible moments before were torn apart in seconds under the concentrated firepower of the human fleet. Elias watched from his position, a small grin forming. Show-offs, he muttered. But the large creature remained. It pulsed again, sending another wave outward. This time, the fleet held. Shields flared across multiple ships, absorbing the impact. Ren's expression didn't change. Focus fire on the primary, she ordered. The fleet adjusted. Every weapon shifted. Every system locked onto the same target. The large creature moved, trying to evade, but there was nowhere to go. Elias joined the formation. Thought you might need a hand, he said over the channel. Ren allowed herself a slight smile. Try to keep up, Captain. Together, they fired. The combined force of the fleet converged on the creature in a single, overwhelming strike. Its form shattered. Not partially, not temporarily, completely. It collapsed inward, its structure breaking apart faster than it could recover, until there was nothing left. Silence followed. The remaining monsters faltered. Without the larger entity, their coordination broke. They scattered, and the humans did not let them escape. One by one, they were hunted down, destroyed, erased. Within hours, the sky above Lurian was clear. The rupture still remained, but the swarm was gone. On the surface, deep within their shelters, the Lurians watched as the last of the monsters vanished. They did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They simply stared. Because for the first time since the sky had broken, it was quiet. Above them, the human fleet moved into position around the rupture. Admiral Ren Hale studied it carefully. Can we close it? She asked. Unknown, an officer replied. Energy readings are unstable. This isn't a natural phenomenon. Ren nodded slowly. Then we figure it out. Elias's ship drifted closer. This thing didn't just appear, he said. Something opened it. Ren glanced at him through the display. And if it can be opened, she said, it can be closed. Below them, on the dying world of Lurien, a fragile hope began to grow stronger. Because the monsters were gone. And the humans were still here. But far beyond the rupture, in a place where light did not behave as it should, something else was watching. And it had just learned that the galaxy was no longer defenseless. The silence did not last. For a brief moment, the space above Lurien felt calm again. The swarm was gone. The massive entity that had led them had been destroyed. The human fleet held position around the rupture, their ships forming a defensive perimeter as systems scanned, analyzed, and prepared. But the tear in reality was still there. And it was changing. At first, it was subtle. A faint pulsing, slower than before. Then the edges of the rupture began to stabilize, its jagged, chaotic form smoothing into something more defined. Admiral Ren Hale watched the readings carefully. That is not collapsing, she said. No. One of her officers replied. It's reorganizing. Elias Vaughn drifted closer in his ship, his senses focused entirely on the anomaly. Something on the other side is adjusting it, he said. Whatever opened this, it's still active. On Lurien, deep beneath the surface, the Lurians listened to every transmission they could intercept. Their fear had not disappeared. It had only changed shape. Because if the monsters had been defeated, then what had sent them? The rupture pulsed again. This time, the effect was immediate. Every human ship detected a massive surge of energy, far greater than anything recorded before. Shields flared instinctively across the fleet as systems struggled to process the incoming data. Energy spike off the charts, an officer reported. This is something else. Ren's voice remained steady. All ships, prepare for unknown contact. Elias narrowed his eyes. Here we go. The rupture expanded. Not violently, deliberately. Space itself seemed to fold back, creating a smooth, circular opening that no longer looked like a wound. It looked like a doorway. And then something came through. It was not like the monsters. It did not swarm. It did not distort wildly. It emerged slowly, with control and purpose. At first, it appeared small. Then the senses recalibrated. It wasn't small. It was distant. As it moved forward, its true scale became clear. It dwarfed everything. Larger than the previous leader creature. Larger than entire human ships. Its form was structured. Not chaotic, not unstable. Precise. Symmetrical in a way that should not have been possible for something so alien. Its surface shifted with patterns that resembled thought, like a living equation constantly rewriting itself. The moment it fully entered real space, everything changed. Every system on every ship spiked. Gravity fluctuated. Time readings desynchronized. Even light bent unnaturally around it. On Lurien, instruments failed entirely. The Lurians could only watch and feel, because its presence reached them, even underground. A pressure in their minds. A weight that made it hard to think. Hard to breathe. Admiral Ren Hale's hand tightened slightly on the command rail. Report. No clear classification, an officer said, struggling to maintain composure. Energy output is infinite variance. It's not stabilizing to any measurable constant. Elias spoke quietly. That's not a weapon, he said. That's the source. The entity moved, not toward the fleet, toward the planet. Ren reacted instantly. All ships, intercept. The fleet surged forward as one. Hundreds of ships accelerated, forming attack vectors designed to contain and engage the entity before it could reach Lurien. The creature did not stop. It did not speed up. It simply continued. Ren gave the order. Fire. The void lit up again. Coordinated strikes from every ship converged on the entity. Energy beams, disruption fields, kinetic bursts, everything the fleet had used to destroy the swarm. They hit, and passed through, not deflected. not absorbed, ignored. The attacks dissipated as if they had never existed. A silence fell over the command channels. Elias's voice broke it. "Yeah," he said softly. "That's a problem." The entity responded, not with an attack, with a thought. It was not transmitted through any known signal. It did not pass through communication systems. It simply appeared. In every mind. Human. Lurian. Every conscious being within range felt it. A presence. Ancient. Vast. Unimaginable. And it spoke without words. "You resist." The sensation was overwhelming, but Ren forced herself to respond, her voice steady even as the pressure built. "All ships, defensive formation. Do not engage blindly." Elias focused, trying to interpret what they were experiencing. "It's not just a creature," he said. "It's aware, fully aware." The entity continued. This region was unclaimed. It was curious. The word did not carry emotion as the Lurians understood it. It was closer to a statement of function. "We are not unclaimed," Ren said firmly, though she knew it could hear her thoughts regardless of the spoken words. There was a pause. Then the entity replied, "Now you are observed." The pressure increased. Ships began to drift slightly off course as pilots struggled to maintain control. Systems flickered, not from damage, but from interference on a level they couldn't counter. Elias clenched his jaw. "It's not attacking," he said. "It's evaluating." Ren's eyes remained locked on the entity. "Then we make it regret that." She turned to her officers. "Prepare synchronized overload strike. All ships." There was hesitation. "Admiral, if our previous attacks had no effect." "They were tests," Ren interrupted. "This is not." The fleet adjusted. Power levels rose across every vessel, pushing systems beyond safe limits. Energy built, not for precision, but for sheer output. Elias followed suit. "Guess we're doing this," he muttered. The entity continued its approach. Closer to Lurian. Closer to the last surviving pockets of life on the planet. Ren raised her hand. "On my mark." The pressure in their minds grew stronger. Almost unbearable. But no one pulled back. No one retreated. "Mark." They fired. Every ship released everything it had. The combined energy of an entire human fleet surged forward in a single, concentrated wave. It was not a weapon designed for a single target. It was annihilation. The attack struck the entity. For the first time, something changed. The surface of the entity rippled. Not ignored. Not fully resisted. But not destroyed. It reacted. A pulse expanded outward, stronger than anything before. Ships were thrown back, shields collapsing under the strain. Several vessels spun out of formation, their systems overloaded. Elias's ship barely held. "Shields at 10%, the AI warned. Elias steadied the controls. "Still here," he said. Ren's flagship stabilized, though barely. "Status," she demanded. "Multiple ships damaged," an officer replied. "No confirmed losses yet." Ren looked back at the entity. It had stopped. For the first time, it was not advancing. It was focused on them. On the fleet. On humanity. Interesting. The thought pressed into their minds again, heavier now. "You are not like the others." Elias let out a breath. "Yeah," he said quietly. "We get that a lot." The entity shifted. Its form changed, becoming more defined, more structured, as if it was adapting to better interact with this reality. "You destroy what was sent." "They were destroying us," Ren replied. "They were extensions." The words carried a weight that none of them liked. "Of what?" Elias asked. The answer came without hesitation. "Of me." A silence followed. Even across the fleet, no one spoke for a moment. Elias shook his head slightly. "Of course they were." Ren's expression hardened. "Then this ends here." The entity did not respond immediately. Instead, it did something else. It reached toward Lurian. Not physically. Something deeper. The planet itself reacted. Energy began to drain again, not in scattered patches like before, but all at once. The remaining life force of the world was being pulled toward the entity in a massive surge. On the surface, the Lurians felt it instantly. Their shelters dimmed. Their systems failed. Their bodies weakened as the energy that sustained their world was stripped away. No, Elias said. Ren reacted instantly. All ships, disrupt that connection. The fleet fired again, targeting the space between the entity and the planet. This time, the attacks had an effect. The energy flow faltered, not stopped, but weakened. The entity responded with another pulse, stronger than before. Several ships went dark. This time, losses were real. Elias's grip tightened. "All right," he said. "That's enough." He opened a direct channel to Ren. "I've got an idea," he said. "This is not the time for risks, Captain." "It's exactly the time," Elias replied. "We can't outgun this thing. You saw that. But we hurt it. Not enough, but enough to matter." Ren didn't respond immediately. "Go on." Elias looked at the entity. "It's not just here to destroy," he said. "It's here to take, to absorb. That's how it works." "Yes," Ren said. "We've established that. So we give it something it can't handle." Ren's eyes narrowed slightly. "What are you suggesting?" Elias smiled faintly. "Overload." Before she could stop him, his ship moved straight toward the entity. "Captain Vaughn," Ren said sharply. "Stand down." "No," Elias replied calmly. "You hold the line. Keep it busy. I'll take care of the rest." His ship accelerated, pushing beyond normal limits. The entity noticed. It shifted its focus. A portion of its structure moved to intercept. Elias didn't slow down. "Charging core to maximum," he said. "Warning," the AI replied. "Containment failure inevitable." "I know." The ship glowed as energy built within it, far beyond anything it was designed to hold. Behind him, the fleet continued to attack, drawing the entity's attention. But Elias was already too close. The pressure in his mind was overwhelming now, the entity's awareness fully focused on him. "You approach willingly." "Yeah," he said. "You like taking things, right?" There was a pause. Then the entity responded. "You offer yourself." Elias smiled. "Something like that." His ship reached the edge of the entity's form. The surface rippled, opening slightly as if to consume him. "Now," Elias said. The core went critical. For a fraction of a second, everything stopped. Then the universe seemed to break. The explosion was not like any weapon. It was not a blast. It was a release. All the energy contained within the ship, pushed beyond every limit, destabilized and unleashed directly inside the entity's structure. For the first time, it screamed. Not a vibration, not a distortion, a true reaction. Its form shattered, not cleanly, not instantly, but violently, pieces of it breaking apart as the overload tore through its core. The connection to Lurian snapped. The energy drain stopped. The entity recoiled, its structure collapsing inward, struggling to maintain coherence. Ren didn't hesitate. "All ships," she commanded. "Final strike." The fleet fired everything they had left. This time, it worked. The entity could not stabilize. It fractured further, its massive form breaking apart into smaller and smaller pieces, each one dissolving under the continued assault. Until finally, there was nothing left. The rupture began to collapse. Without the entity sustaining it, the doorway destabilized, shrinking rapidly until it sealed completely. Silence returned. Real silence. No pressure, no distortion, just empty space. The fleet held position, damaged, reduced, but still there. Ren stood still for a long moment. Then she spoke. "Report. Hostile presence. Gone," an officer said, barely believing it. Ren closed her eyes briefly. "Captain Vaughn?" she asked. There was no response. She already knew. Below them, on Lurian, the Lurians felt it too. The weight was gone. The drain had stopped. For the first time since the sky had broken, their world was quiet. But it was not the same. Much had been lost. Too much. Yet they were alive. Because someone had come. Because someone had stayed. And because someone had chosen to stand when no one else could. Above the planet, the human fleet began to move, not away, but closer. Not as conquerors, not as observers, but as protectors. And across the stars, A message spread quietly among those who listened. The galaxy was no longer defenseless. Because when the monsters came, humanity did not run. It answered.